Hello everybody. Welcome to BrickVault. Today in front of us is one amazing set that I get to review to you guys. Boy, do I feel lucky. Look, it just keeps going up and up and up. It's so tall. This is the Lego Creator Haunted House. It is part of the Fairgrounds collection. So technically it's part of the same collection of sets that is the carousel, the giant roller coaster, all those ones, because technically this is, at least in universe, supposed to be a haunted house attraction. There's a really fun, pretty massive actually, play function that is the drop tower. But we'll be getting into all of the details, all the figs, all of that. Let me just first say thank you to the Lego group for sending this set over to us to do a review. We really appreciate it. And also let me just give you the baseline logistics of what this set is. 3,231 pieces, sells for $250 US or $249.99. Set number 10273. And yeah, it is huge. It is one of the tallest sets that I've seen in a really long time. This might actually be in the running for one of the tallest sets that Lego has ever made. And yeah, it's also on four different 16 by 16 plates, which means you can slip this in between modular creator sets, sort of. Because this is a dollhouse play feature, you have these little bits sticking out the side. So depending on what you put it next to, it might be running into a wall. But for the most part, it is pretty compatible just on a very loose fitting if you were to put this into a modular city, which you will see at the end of this episode. So anyways, without further ado, let's start off and we're gonna take a look at the minifigs first. So 9 figs in total. Here you can see there are 4 staff. These are the 2 twins that do the operating of, ticket sales and maybe operating the machine. And then we've got a couple of ghosts. So, oh, wait a second. They both have sad faces. Let me turn that around. They've got dual-sided prints. There we go. Happy face and sad face to show you guys the alternates, and then you've got 5 different friends also. So that's the baseline breakdown. Let's take a closer look. So let's start off with this first fig here. For lack of a better term, she has a somewhat Karen-esque hair mold piece that is the popular, at least popular right now, internet meme that's been going around. It's actually a decent looking hairpiece. I do like that Lego just keeps on adding more modern new ones. This isn't the first time we've seen this one actually, but it looks pretty decent in terms of a combination. You've got the blonde. This is also not a new minifigure face mold. Actually, nothing on this first figure is new in terms of a print. But I really like this jacket that we have for the next friend. It's in teal. You can see the detailings kind of show it's one of those poofy jackets. The purple contrasts incredibly well. Somebody let me know what that logo is on the t-shirt. It might have something to do with like an old Lego theme. Usually that's how designers do it. And I have not seen this face print personally. Somebody let me know if that's new. Or maybe I'll look it up or something right after this. But yeah, so I like that. There looks like there's some new stuff here. This is the Newbury High School jacket that is from the hidden side. So I like that it's just kind of getting thrown in. It is a really colorful piece, so I do enjoy that. So you can probably guess that she's a high school student. Not a bad little face print. And then this is definitely my favorite torso print of the set for sure. It's the kind of biker jacket, or just sort of the punk rocker leather short jacket. You can see she's got a striped shirt underneath, glasses, scared face. Great. Not a new expression, but just a good combination of pieces. I think she's the most interesting looking friend of the bunch. We have another friend in a wheelchair. Let me turn it back a little bit. The sweater the sweater print is awesome because it goes all the way through. We saw that, I think that came out a few years back, but it still is a great looking print. Let me show you the alternate facial expression. He's just got, where you go, focus? Yeah, it's just a nice little smirk. That's actually a great little expression. Yeah, so there's this guy. He's holding on to a ticket that's sort of how he was placed, at least when we were building him. And then we've got, well, I guess I can show the twins together. Nothing new about these prints, I don't think. Including the torso piece. I feel like I have seen that torso piece. The face mold, or sorry, the face print for sure has been around for quite a long time. He really does remind me of the Slingshot channel guy, that particular face print. And then let's move over to the ghosts. So we've got the happy face and the sad face. Sorry, back forward, this is the happy face, sad face. And yeah, super simple. It doesn't need to be much else other than, you know, somebody in a blanket sheet or whatever. It almost feels like that. We've just got the hood piece, the relatively new hood piece, molded in white, which is just kind of nice. And yeah, we've got the two different facial expressions. Kind of reminds me of the Scream mask, if you know what I mean. Just a little bit like one of those Halloween masks that you could see at a store. All right, so before we jump into the interior details of this model, I do want to just show you guys what this thing looks like from the outside. So as we turn it back, you can see there's quite a bit of external features here that make up the actual play set. You can actually see it working here in the back, and then there's also a fun little release piece here that helps the piece drop down on the inside. As I move it around, you can see it just kind of wants to naturally open up a bit because it is one of these dollhouse feature sets, but look at that. It really fits in nice and buttery. It matches up without a seam there in the front, which is great. The roof matches up without much of a gap, so functionally it is awesome. But in general, looking at this, we've got a really muted and I think well-contained color combination. What is this? The olive green is not particularly flashy, and when you put it into a Lego city, which you'll see at the end, it doesn't pop so much, which is kind of nice. It actually has a little bit more of a muted contrast with other buildings. It makes sense because this is a haunted house. It's not supposed to be particularly flashy. So you have just some basic stonework, pretty easy detailing to put together. And then, well, this thing is just sort of naturally coming open. I'll show you guys maybe some closer shots of the tower higher up, but this thing just wanted to open. So here we go. This is the interior. Look at all of this space. What's interesting, and I think kind of funny, is all this stuff hidden at the top. Remember, this is supposed to be more of like an attraction. Like in universe, when this is closed, there's basically no space for anybody to see this stuff. You really wouldn't be witnessing any of the internal parts of the attic unless you were in the attic somehow. Maybe you can view a little bit of it when you're dropping down during the attraction or when you're coming up and you're seeing it, but you're not actually able to see that much, which is kind of funny. So anyways, there's a lot of Easter eggs here. Actually, I'm not going to have this guy standing there because he'll get in the way of the function. Let me go to the functions first. So closing this off just for a second, let me show you guys. We've got doors that open and close. I don't know if you saw that. Let me zoom in a little bit. Doors that open and close, which is kind of nice. So opening it back up, that's a really easy function. There's actually a really fun opening and closing function at the top that I'll get into in a second. But let's just start off with the details from one side to the next. So you walk through the front doors, you've got a candle chandelier there at the top, and then above, this part of the attic has, I guess, another minifigure. I guess you could say 10 minifigs for this set. He's an upside down skeleton. He's maybe an explorer. He's got one of those little measuring tools, and there seems to be some kind of evil shrine. This slightly higher up look will show you that there's, I don't know, some kind of candle cauldron. Oh, there's candles on either side with skulls, snake, glass. I don't know exactly what that is, but it looks like incantations are done there. And then moving over, we've got another skull, this time in a vial, maybe a preserved head in like formaldehyde or something. Somebody tell me what that is. I cannot recognize this piece. And then if I can pop this out, let me just show you. I also don't know what's in here. We've got a pair of pants and then this. I don't know, I guess it just kind of fills up the space. It's just a couple of bricks. So some of this detailing, I couldn't actually tell you what it is or what it's supposed to represent. But now that we've got a little bit of extra light, here's another skull ornament or skull decoration that hangs out right above the ticket counter where he's got potions of some kind. I wonder if he's selling those. It doesn't really show. Let me just say, here's my first criticism. You can't have a minifig standing at the actual ticket counter without them leaning back a little bit. Like well, actually it's not too bad, but it's a little bit tight here. There's not as much posing space, which I would have liked to have. So this lip comes out a little bit and it kind of pushes just to there's the minimum amount of space required to have a minifig standing here is what is here. He's got to kind of like lean back just in order to get that ticket to work. It's nice. There's a fireplace, but this is also one of the criticisms. Also, is like so much of this detail. It's like this is a fireplace detailing that you will only know like looks like a fireplace once it sort of starts coming together, but you'll never be able to see when it's actually together because it'll all be totally closed off. It'll be 100% almost closed off. Like this is how much space is actually inside the house. So logistically, the interior almost doesn't really make any sense at all when you think about it. It just looks nice from the open. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. You're not gonna see it when it's closed, so it might as well look as good as possible while it is open. But the universe of the interior doesn't really, let me just turn that contrast down a little bit. There we go. We've got an Egyptian pharaoh style large mummified sarcophagus looking piece here at the top. It doesn't really match up a whole lot with everything else, but you know, scary mummies. It would have been nice to have a mummy minifigure actually, because there are actually a few, like here, another reference. This is an obelisk with some Egyptian hieroglyphs on the exterior here. Would have been cool to have another print down at the bottom. It feels a little bit vacant. You've got hieroglyphs only at the top and then completely blank at the bottom. Also, another slight criticism. Okay, this is the coolest piece, for sure. I definitely saved, well, before we get there, sorry. I wanna go in order. Let's take this ghost out of the way. We've got another case here, and then you can't see it, but in the back, you see that red? Maybe I'll just pull the piece out. There is some hidden dynamite, right? I don't know. That could be a reference. You know, this is obviously based on the haunted house that you can see at Disneyland or something very similar to that. So who knows? Maybe that's a reference from something like this, from the real similar haunted house that exists in real life. Anyways, best part of the interior right here. We've got a couple of friends playing the piano, but let me just take everything out of here so I can show you. Right? I suppose it's an organ, right? There's a slight difference, but it's got all these pipes coming out the top. So this would make it an organ, I believe. But yes, it is so detailed. It's so nice. It's got little golden stubs for the feet. You can see all the different foot pedals, 5 different foot pedals for this. Yeah, it's so good. I love all these pieces too. I like that we get a lot of these white pieces for the candles and tons of them in the gold. It's a somewhat newish piece that this set comes with a lot of. And of course, this piano is built to be taken out very, very easily. So that's awesome. This is definitely the best bit of detailing for the interior in terms of a build. But my favorite aesthetic, my favorite looking part of the build is actually, favorite looking part of the interior, I should say, is actually this. So this is, I was confused building it. This is a glass window piece that is printed completely through. And then behind it, there's actually another glass window piece, which when you activate the light brick, oh, I was hoping that would look better in the camera doing this. Let me change the light setting. Is that better? You can just, okay, let me change the camera settings. Actually, I just turned the lights down. There we go. Look at that. So it's shining through, the light brick is shining through 2 different window pieces. One is completely trans that just has a black outline of this pharaoh, this mummified skeletal pharaoh. and the red light brick activates just behind the jewel here. So it really pops through. So cool. And the activation is so well hidden. Look, it's literally, you just push that in. There's a little bit of a plunger there, and that is what activates the light brick. So good. Anyways, that looks the best. It doesn't pop quite as much on this camera. I'm trying to, yeah, there we go. I turned the light down so you can't see it as well now, but it really looks great to the naked eye. So anyways, this is the best build. This is the best visual looking piece. I would say it's very, very clever how they did that. I wouldn't mind seeing more interesting, clever double reflections or double shine through silhouetted stuff in the future. And that is the interior. It doesn't work in a logistical way. Like when you close it up, there's barely enough space. I mean, I suppose technically it still could work. Like physically a minifigure could get from the entrance to here and move around, but it's incredibly narrow. And I suppose there's like the tiniest of open slits between you know, this roof basement, but it's like you wouldn't really be able to see it if you were a minifig person standing in and looking up. Okay, so now it is time to get into this main function. You've been looking at it in the front. Let me just show you how it would work. I already added 2 figs sitting in here. It clips in the back, which is nice. You've just got this little red clip piece, and it clips directly into the chamber, so it just makes it easier for you to get your hand in there to, oops, finagle around with the figs and the functions. Oh, there we go. One-handed is a little bit funny. Now let me show you the whole thing from far away so you can see what this is about. But you twist the knob in the back and boom. That is such a smooth function. So there's a lot of things happening here that make it work, because I'm not changing the direction in which I turn this knob. You can see it's kind of not tracking totally. I think I messed around a little bit with it. I have a theory why it's making that sound. But as it comes up, you can see that it's opening the doors. That's all one fluid motion. Gets to the top, falls all the way back down to the bottom. It's also hitting these rollers. There's a bunch of rollers that kind of slow the whole thing down significantly. You can hear them spin as they drop. So it's coming up, and then you'll hear it hit this, and you might even see the wheels spin a little bit. So let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2. So it actually slows it down. It feels really buttery when it happens. You can actually kind of feel the shake in the table as it hits this, because those larger dark wheels in the back that you saw from before, they act as sort of a counterweight, and they are sort of inertial dampers. In fact, let me just see if I can, here we go, they're coming up, and let me show you guys a little bit closer the opening of these doors. It is such a smooth function. I don't even know how to describe how they did it, but they managed to weight the door in a way where when it drops, its own gravity pulls it back into a closed position. You can see there's actually these 4x4 curved round plates that have this way of running into the slope at the top, and then these slopes here is really what ends up pushing the doors closed. These 1x4 slopes, they're both detail for the outside, this black detailing for the outside, but it also is functional, and it makes the doors want to naturally close after they drop. It's such a fun looking feature. Like, the animation of that is great, and the design itself is incredibly clever. Look at that right there. Now let's address the clicking that you've been hearing. It really only happens in the beginning when you're pulling the people, or you're pulling the thing back up through here, and it's going through these inertial dampeners, I suppose, if that's what you want to call them, these stoppers. That's the only time you actually hear. So that's this not tracking on the teeth. It's literally the pressure is pulling the gear, and if you just twist it and you get through, and once you pass through the thing that's stopping it, there we go. These are no longer engaged, the weights. You don't get that anymore. Now, I may have added too many of these little teeth, and there's just a little bit, it's just a little bit too loose. It felt very tight. And I remember counting this out because you have to count out like 140 something of these. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take one of these out and see if I can get rid of that sound. All right, I've taken one out. I remember I added two. I thought I counted correctly, and then it just felt too tight to connect. So I added two extras from what I thought I had counted correctly. So I took one out. Ooh, here we go. Look at that. All right, so that was definitely human error on my part, but I'd like to show you guys that even though we do all this crazy, really intricate custom building, we're not perfect here. So there we go. Oh, that feels so much smoother. I had a feeling that was the case because I didn't think, there's so many really, really intricate, very, very clever bits of this design that if they had, you know, a messed up basic piece like that, that didn't really make sense. So anyways, yeah, there's no normal clicking in this. I just built it wrong initially. Here's just a very quick close shot of how this toothed gear works. So this piece is naturally dropping due to gravity, and then the teeth of the gear catch it. So this whole thing doesn't just want to fall back because this is where all the gravity is engaged. But when, of course, you disconnect this lever, this toothed gear doesn't matter anymore. This is, when it's engaged, this is what keeps everything from dropping back the other way. I'm about to hook it up with motor functions, and there's one thing that you need to pay attention to. All right, it's working. So we've got the motor functions hooked up. Look how fast that goes. I could probably slow it down a little bit, but that's so cool. So there they are landing, right? And then there they are at the top. And it looks great. Now there's one thing I want to show you guys when setting this up real quick. So check it out. I've actually got an old power functions. You know, they want you to use the new powered up feature. So there it is. You can actually see the weight system working, which is pretty interesting. Oh, it's really, really clever, honestly. All right, now very quickly setting this up, if you've got like an older motor like mine, you change directions depending on which way you slide this. It'll change the motor rotating one direction or another. If this goes the wrong way and the teeth come back in, there's so much torque. I did it twice on accident. This gear will push really hard against that and it'll mangle this and it'll pop it out, and I bet you could break some pieces if you're not careful. If you have enough torque, if you have enough battery power, you might actually just damage something in here. So just be careful when you're testing the direction. Hold this up while you're doing it. Hold this away from the gears, because in case you're accidentally turning this way towards it, you're not going to catch and you're not going to have this piece mangled, because I think I almost broke this thing going the wrong direction. Also, I mentioned it briefly before, but this is the older piece. The new power function is a little bit more narrow, and I had to take this piece out in order to get the older motor to fit. And all right, here is the Lego City. You can see the larger tower in the back, and it actually works decently well. Now, it only works because I put it right on the edge, and you can't actually look close enough, but when you get close, sorry if it's shaky, it's not touching the French restaurant, and that's because the little side bits that I pointed out earlier, those little round nubs that are sticking out that help the thing open and close on the sides, they stick out and they actually run into the other buildings. So the Birch bookstore, for example, is actually sticking out just a little bit too much, a hair over, which means if you had this in a tightly connected spot, it wouldn't work, but if you're just casually placing it, yeah, it looks like it fits in just fine. Now, of course, it also doesn't have a sidewalk bit. You know, it's not perfectly consistent, but from afar, that's all I'm really trying to say, is from afar, looks pretty cool. I feel like it leaves a really good visual footprint on the city, running into tables as I step backwards, and that is actually going to be it for this review. The model is well constructed, the colors are somewhat muted, which I kind of like. Minifigs are decent, though not a giant selling point. It really is about how it looks from the outside and this incredibly well-designed play feature. In terms of intricacy and efficiency, it probably is one of the best play function or motorized functions from the Fairgrounds collection, and it also just really wins on points of uniqueness. Thanks a lot again to the LEGO group for sending this set over to us to do a review. Hope you guys found this review helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.